Hello and welcome back to my RP-1 campaign in the Launch Complex's Dev Branch. Doing another orbit. I'll queue up ESA Titan sats. Probably. Too wide. Squirrel. Area 16. So I'm building taking the Titan missions and gonna go ahead and basically optimize better for NavSat, WeatherSat deployment. Sample contract.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so the delta V requirement is 410 meters per second beyond the minimal 105 kilometer orbit. Another 400 meters per second from action. Oh, oops, let me look at the other set. That's trivial. Block the second generation. Sats. So payload is trivial. Sat. Low eccentricity, about a 600 per orbit, moderate inclination. Second gen. Payload range is 50. They're higher, 1,000 kilometers. Basically something. All right, so this we can do with our Thor-able thing. Probably. Or at least once we get an engine. Yeah, so even the second generation. This is set up for the navset, second gen navset contracts. Right, that's a reasonable peroxide. Yeah, mod list is underselling it. Yeah, it's the full RSS RO RP-1 suite. Okay. Maybe you should consider more RCS than just that, but fine for now. Okay, all that is ludicrously expensive. Okay, look at the engine configs here. All right. Very nice. So that's an option. Guess we'll just go with this. How much is the tooling in total? It's going to be pretty expensive. 6 million for the fairings, 2 million for the avionics. Expensive. Oh, lol. Actually, you know what? I'm going to load up the Thor class and see what using an X405 does for us. Probably get away with switching to the LR87 actually. So two minutes, 30 seconds of verniers. Close enough. And it's for that look good. It's good. Now let's fix staging. Okay, so not enough thrust. Three minutes. Okay. Oh, ha, no. We can do this. We just need boosters. Caster one. Okay, seems fine. Except for the fact that we are very, very slightly too heavy. Okay. Oh, right. Staging is screwed. That's better. All right. I'd like to use 3 casters, like as is traditional, but don't have headroom to do so. So we can upgrade the launch complex to support that. But 2 casters is enough. It's enough. Okay, I think. Okay, here's the launch vehicle. Alternatively, you can do that.
Hey there.
Hello.
How goes it?
Pretty well. Built 2 new-ish launch vehicles.
Cool.
And can, by dint of throwing an incredible number of engineers at my Titan launch complex, I can actually build Titans pretty fast now.
Good.
That. Up. A little sad that I can't put 3 casters on like I should, but can't do it. Don't have the headroom in the launch complex.
That's a shame.
But I can always modify the launch complex. That will solve the problem. The heck? There. extended. Oh, we actually need extended 2.
So
Okay.
what is this build for?
This is going to be my bread and butter. Probably nav and weather sat launcher. That I probably don't actually need full Titan to do it. I can do it with this. Like I can also throw an inconsiderable quantity of stuff at them, but for now. Now I'm just going to read this as a let's see. Oh yeah, the other thing is I want to see how much tonnage performance I gain by not having such crappy utilization. Let's find out. 2 minutes, 7.2 seconds, 69. All right, 69.5 ton, 12,357. Interestingly, we didn't save very much. Isogrid tanks are very light. It happens. Gained about 50 meters per second and about 100 kilograms, I think. Look at the burn times on. That's correct. .3 seconds. 7 seconds. Yeah, we gained 40 meters per second and we saved 400 kilograms on the first stage. That's bad. But not enough to be worth tooling that tank. Okay. So let's see if we have the performance to put yes, we have plenty of performance for that. So yeah, we don't actually need Titan to have sats.
It seems like it would be a little excessive, yeah.
Oh, also, I bet this isn't set to the right config. No, it is not.
Oh, Aereo, I hang out with Nathan once in a while on the voice chat through the Discord. I'm Maximal, former lead designer on Kerbal for the last few years, while the last few years of its development.
Yeah, you got to be there at the capstone.
Yeah. Well, I'm mostly happy that I was there to make Breaking Ground and some of the cool stuff we did in later versions, like the the stock KIS stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm certainly loving the stock craft manager. That has made way the heck better. Turns out being on the like actually current version of KSP has advantages.
Nathan does. I'm not really a coder anymore. I used to be a long time ago.
I mean, not sure it's. So I was going to say it's not something that you forget, but if interviewing has taught me anything, it's definitely something that you forget.
I think it's a skill you can reacquire, but
Yes.
there's a lot of minutia to be current on to be efficient right off the bat.
Yes.
I can still, like come up with algorithms, but like there's just, I mean, even just like IDE complexity increases over time.
Yeah. Although, like, VS Code is an interesting stab at trying to counteract that trend. So, like, wait a little while and soon it will be super complex.
Yeah.
Basically. All right, this.
Also, there's stuff that if you don't use it regularly, or your egg, you kind of forget it. Like, how exactly do I use a cross product? Oh yeah, it's the perpendicular two product. Yeah, I remember now, but just like it's not like instant when you're using this routinely.
Yeah, Stack Overflow exists for a reason. Squirrel, yeah, this is basically Thor Vega Ablestar, except light Ablestar. Basically Thor Vega Able with the Ablestar engine. Aereo, I mostly work in C++, but like, I mean, I've written enough C# for Kerbal itself and the mods, and still write some sheet. It was actually interesting. I hadn't written a bunch of C# in a while, so I had to like remember how some stuff worked when I was writing launch complexes. It's been a long time since I did it. Probably like 3 years since I was regularly writing C#. A little rusty.
I want to say it's been like 11 or 12 for me.
Were you even doing C# then, or was that C++?
Let's see. When I was working at Maxis, it was C++.
Yeah, I would be shocked.
No, like on Sims 3, we got to C#. Like we were.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Sims 3 uses C# for a bunch of the script.
Yeah, we basically said C# is our scripting language.
Yes. Reasonable choice. Reasonable choice.
Oh yeah, it worked out great. I mean, in a lot of ways, especially since we had, every designer we hired onto the project, at least while I was still there, was a former engineer.
Yeah. I'm just going to verify that this thing works before I tool it, but reasonably sure that it works.
And compared to what we'd been using on Sims 2, I think it was a breath of fresh air.
Oh, that's right. I also do some in Lua, and it's super nice to be working in C# in that Lua. I was going to say.
Yeah, Lua would have been a big upgrade on what we were using in Sims 2.
Fair. That kind of says a lot.
They developed a in-house visual scripting language that they thought was going to enable designers to code Sims objects, but actually just meant that they had to hire engineers to be scripters for them in a lot of cases. Because I mean, there was some easy stuff that you could do easily, but almost everything we did was relatively complicated, and the visual scripting language was I mean, if you distilled it down, it was kind of like writing Sysc on a Sun system, where you had to put all your variables into a register to pass them to a function, stuff like that.
Yep. Oh, son of a gun. No, MechJeb, don't be like that. There we go.
There's a possibility that I became a designer because a lot of the engineers we had at Maxis were really, really, really good. And they
Yeah.
scared me off from this track.
What just... That was... I've never seen that before. Yeah, no, like,
That's weird.
the
Yeah.
engineers that I've run into who used to work at Maxis, I can understand that, yes.
I have not. I mean, I worked in an IT job that was technically healthcare for like a year after college before I got my first games job, but then I've been doing it ever since.
Yeah, and so I worked on campaigns for a while, but like at the time I was modding, so didn't really change any in terms of how much coding time I was spending on things. And then been working. That was strange. Let's see if that's any.
Guys in the games industry can vary a lot more than it used to in some ways, because it's grown a lot. There are a very wide scale of company sizes and project sizes. There's a lot of countries involved with it now. It feels very different if you're working on, like, I don't know, a mobile title that is mostly about making a buck versus like some indie title versus a big production for Take-Two versus like an independent studio. It can be quite chill. I mean, certainly people are more relaxed about things. You don't wear a suit ever or something like that. And there's a lot less bureaucracy and generally a lot more seat of your pants sort of stuff going on, which can be quite nice. But you're also, I guess, even in healthcare or something, they're often kind of like making up as you go.
Yeah.
I think it's a great industry because you work with a lot of extremely eclectic people and with a lot of interests besides just games. People are generally like pretty smart in the office. It's not all perfect, of course. The hours can be long. Sometimes you get some toxic personalities, but for the most part, it's pretty good. It is hard. It can be hard to get into. Like, obviously a lot of people want to do it, but even with the expansion of the industry, there aren't enough like good studio jobs to go around. So that's it. Do you have any other questions? Nathan, do you want to chime in on any of that? Feel free.
No, I mean that jives with my experience. I mean, my trajectory's been sort of weird, like working a bunch of mods and then by myself and then on Kerbal and at Valve, which is equally weird but in different ways. Like, I can't really speak to how things work in the industry in like normal circumstances.
Yeah. You've had kind of both in this ends of the spectrum, but not kind of in between.
Yeah, and yet like the both ends of the spectrum ended up day to day feeling like, other than like obviously the salary, but also just like the daily pressure of do we have to worry about what's happening next week?
Mm-hmm.
That's different. But in terms of like day to day doing the thing that I think I should be working on, it's been pretty similar.
I will say it's gotten a lot. I mean, engineers are in demand everywhere, and if you're an engineer who's interested in doing gaming, and it can be relatively easy to get in. I mean, compared to like an artist or producer or designer nowadays. What was your experience with gaming so bad, Squirrel?
That does sound pretty grim.
Yeah, that's pretty toxic. And yeah, I can. That does, like, there are horror stories, of course. As with most jobs and companies, it's 90%. Oh, well, maybe not 90%. A lot of it is your management. Like, your management's good, like working at a fast food restaurant can be a good experience. I mean, if your management's terrible, working nearly anywhere it's terrible. And it sounds like whatever this team you were working with was terribly badly managed.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little bit of a trap to think that. So, in general, yeah, point I'm making, it's a little bit of a trap to think that you're going to be excited working in games versus what you're currently working on. I think, like, there's a way in which that's probably true, but you'd be surprised how many boring things there are to work on in games. Um, like, just like in anything else, the majority of the stuff you're doing working on a game is not necessarily the fun stuff. It's just the stuff that's got to be done. Like, I love my job a whole lot, and there's a lot of fun stuff in it, but a lot of that fun stuff is like solving interesting problems, and that's true like, most cases, basically like whatever set of problems you're encountering, as long as there are some interesting problems you're solving.
Yeah, that's true. I think I've been relatively lucky in my games career to work on a lot of good and interesting projects, partially by happenstance, especially early on, and partially by design as I, have
Yeah,
progressed in my career. And there's still a lot of elbow grease involved.
yeah,
I mean, you get higher up, and there's, just tons of meetings, and you kind of get sick of them, for instance. And you get tired of, like, I mean, I wish I had just engineers like Nathan around all the time, because I feel like
aw,
Nathan can sometimes, we're talking, and I can like describe something, and he reads my mind, and he kind of knows where I'm aiming for it, and like we can collaborate at that level. But there's people who just don't get it, and that's when a designer has to do a lot of extra work to make sure they get it. And, like when you get to team sizes, especially bigger team sizes, there's always going to be people who don't get it. So it's always a lot of work to communicate what needs to be done.
yeah. I think a lot of it is that, and you get this sort of in indies and small teams generally, more so than I think in big and more corporate environments, where of necessity people have to be cross-trained. So, like, there's always going to be people who like think differently than you do in much ways, but it's also the case that, like, on those teams there's going to be more cross-discipline thinking, um, and that makes a huge difference.
Yeah, that can be extremely helpful. Like, and you can try and aim for that even within larger teams. Like, there's, you can set up strike teams of people who can try and gel on a particular feature or something like that. But as with any industry, there isn't as many talented people as you would like, and
Yeah.
but gaming people are generally talented, though. So I'm being a little elitist here, I guess.
Shoot, there was a second change that I was going to make to this, and now I've totally forgotten. So one was that, and oh, right, now I remember, because I care about how things look. Let's see, change to there. That looks
Yeah,
better.
that's true area. You can feel pretty good about, like, I feel good about the stuff I've worked on. A lot of people have played it in the past. It's nice. No idea what acceptance is, though.
Yeah, I re-champion.
Yep. 99% of the time that's true, Ario, and also a good chunk of that time it's because it's not a game that you were necessarily interested in, even if you hadn't worked on it and know how all the pieces would work.
Yeah,
Kerbal is
the
the one rare game
yes,
that I actually played for fun, still play for fun, and worked on.
yeah. So same here. Like I played started Kerbal in May of 2013. Played it for a month before I started modding it. Made Real Solar System starting in October, I think. September, October. First commit was, I think, to the GitHub. Uh, Worked at Squad for a year and change eventually. And then after I left Squad, still played Kerbal, still modded Kerbal. And it's a very large number of years later.
Yeah, I was a Squad for a total of their last 3 years roughly. Yeah, I still play it. I mean, I'm still sitting here on Nathan's stream and talking about modding it.
Yep.
Letting him do all the hard work, of course.
I mean,
As a
you did.
designer should.
I mean, you braved that spreadsheet, so it's only so far you can make those jokes. A lot of contracts. All right, let's tool all the things. Turns out it's cheap. So here's a fun wrinkle with the launch complex stuff. I only have one launch complex for these things.
Mm-hmm.
So it's probably more efficient to build Titans to fly these missions too. Assuming the contract cooldowns are not shared between all of the satellite contracts, which I think they might be. Can't remember. They might not be. If they're not, then yeah, I want to fly Titans as well as these. But I can fly geostationary with Titans. It's a better use of com contract.
Have you progressed all of the different satellite contracts to the point they're repeatables? Is that it?
Not quite yet. Let's see. I want to launch complex way. Go away because I haven't started building yet. Hey, what the heck?
Gaming jobs have gotten more competitive, but they're still, I mean, other than Nathan's company, lower paid than a similar job at a like a Microsoft in the same town or something like that, right? And yeah, there's contractors or more often outsourced teams. Like you may, it's kind of rare that you just hire like one contractor or something like that, if that's what you're asking. But
yeah,
you
we're
will
weird.
hire like
we're weird that way too.
You'll hire an outsourced team to do, like VFX or art or some chunk of your VFX or art or something like that. Just because you need to scale your production faster than you would want to scale your company for a lot of studios, and even bigger studios will occasionally do it, but they're often looking for cost savings rather than the flexibility. So they'll outsource a bunch of stuff to China or whatever to get work done more efficiently there.
Yeah, I mean, there's also like, what's it like? There's a arc worked on by there was a whole thing about the outsourcing studio that did a bunch of arc.
Yeah, there are some special ones. There's studios that will. I mean, there's this weird like it was a Japanese giant studio that would stay like hidden and and do a whole bunch of the work for you. Like you could basically hire them to do just about anything on your game. But that's an odd situation. No, Ariel, they generally don't bring in people for just 6 months or a year especially for engineering contracting. And that said, I don't know if that they might do that on like mobile games. I've been more on like the like double A, triple A sized games for most of my time. So, and on, like PC titles. So the reason we won't generally bring in an engineer for 6 months or a year just as a contractor is because it takes some time to get used to what you're trying to build. You're not, like just a full stack for building a website. Well, that is a very portable skill set, and to some degree, working on Unreal Engine is a relatively portable skill set. But there is so much intricacy with the particular feature that you're wanting to build, and then it's going to continue to be touched at least until you ship, and then often afterwards that they want somebody on who's going to be there for a longer period of time. Um, Because I think, I mean, like one of the bigger things that is different about gaming versus standard IT work or something like that, I would say, is that the amount of variation in what you're doing is somewhat higher. Like obviously IT work, you're responding to things quickly. You've got, like I'm not trying to belittle, working on Amazon or whatever, or like a mobile app, but you won't suddenly have to say, oh, well, like I got to learn rocket science to work on this project, or I gotta, like learn about medieval history or something like that, or like and then build a character personality system, or I gotta learn how people walk and talk to engineers about like setting it up so that people's heads track correctly when they're walking and predicting where they're going.
Brutal loss of efficiency.
It is getting a little bit easier though, especially with remote work. So, if you're asking because you're interested in doing it yourself, then, I mean, if you're a good engineer, people will make accommodations occasionally. You can also work for, I mean, I've worked with outsourcing engineers who they'll bring in for like, they'll, like we'll have a particular feature and we need it to get done relatively quickly, and we might hire like a team for 6 months or a year, because then at least they've got like their own management set up, and we can kind of there's less integration. Often they'll also bring a specialty that we might be looking for to the table, like I don't know, vehicle physics or something like that. We did that when I was working at on the what became Soaked Sackboy's Big Adventure.
That unlocks. Liability sucks. Oh dear. Yeah, I mean these days, like making your own games in Unity and doing a bunch of modding is great entry path into the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say the best test of whether you want to be in the games industry is, do you want to think about your job when you're at home sometimes? Like, do you want to be like engaged at that level? Not that you have to work 80 hours a week or anything. That's generally become less the case than it used to be. But do you want to be like, like I'm somebody who enjoys thinking about work and I want to think about, the game I'm developing, which happens. Like, I mean, it's
Yeah, or like
a
you're
good
playing a
engineer, a
different
good
game and it
designer.
reminds you of the thing that you're doing.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
that's
exactly.
way more
Like,
likely to happen than like, thinking about the various cans of soup that you're having delivered somewhere while you're
yeah,
playing
yeah. But if
StarCraft.
you want to just have your weekends to yourself, your evening hours to yourself, you want to clock in 9 to 6, 9 to 5, whatever, then don't work in the games industry because like that, it's hard to separate them. Yeah, don't worry about the area like low level, high level language.
Yeah,
Like
yeah. Knowing how to be an engineer, you're an engineer. Like you can learn
yeah,
a language.
a bunch of engineers will end up writing stuff in Blueprint and Unreal a chunk of time anyway. There's obviously disciplines within the games industry where it pays off to be, like skilled with a particular language. Like, I don't know, being a graphics programmer, you're not going to be a graphics programmer and work without working in C++ or maybe C Sharp. But there's lots of jobs besides that sort of nitty gritty stuff.
Yeah. Also, like I'd say Python and C Sharp are about equivalently level. Like they're both basically high level scripting-ish languages.
Uh, I'm going to disagree. I felt like C Sharp was significantly more. I mean, it had way more rope for you to hang yourself with everything. Especially, I mean, you can exit out to unmanaged code if you really wanted to.
Yeah, that's true. You can write. Yeah.
Plus, I mean, the number of different constructs you can build in C Sharp uh, is much more intricate, and that like the design patterns you can follow in C Sharp is much wider than I feel is possible, or at least routinely done in Python. I mean, maybe you can try and write C Sharp functionally. It doesn't seem like it's suited for it, but like this is, I don't know, Nathan, you want to address that one? You're
I
probably better.
I yeah, it's hard for me to think of a way you do that.
You just make one big class and start writing all
Yeah.
everything inside of it.
Yeah, that one seems weird to me. All right. So we're gonna edit this and make this something stationary.
Never interacted with F sharp myself.
Yeah, I've never touched. Like I know it exists, but I haven't touched it.
I don't think you should. I mean, if you're for some reason an object-oriented hater, I mean, like a lot of game engines are really extremely object-oriented. That's just a paradigm that works well for the way we interoperate with a game engine. So, you know, Yep, we'll use whatever. I mean, teams will use C# and Lewis and C# and Python. A lot of the days, a lot of times now, because nobody is interested in writing their own engine, they will use one of the existing pre-made engines, though.
Yeah.
So if you're using Unity, you're going to be using C#. If you're using Unreal, you're going to use C++, and your scripting language for Unreal is going to be Blueprint, unless you, I don't know, get a team that is religious about Lua or something and decides to inject it. With Unity, your scripting language is, people will usually be more of a free choice. Blueprint and Unreal is their own scripting language. It's also a visual scripting language, but I gotta say, a much, much, much better one than the one that we used on Sims and Sims 2. So
Yeah,
there's
Blueprint is
that.
good stuff.
Yeah. Area again, it depends. You will sometimes will have dedicated scripters. Sometimes you will have designers who are essentially dedicated scripters with that are also, like kind of setting up game. You can also have a situation where you have somebody who's called a level designer, but also writes script quite often. Um, it's kind of a mix of all of those worlds because scripting language, like there's a lot of useful things you can do relatively easily, and then there's a lot of complex stuff that you can do with, significantly more work, but worthwhile work. And then the dividing line between taking it to code and continuing to stick with Blueprint is often a question of either performance, although Blueprint is relatively performant, especially for a scripting language, or more often it's a question of whether it makes more sense to keep this in the engineering bailiwick because it touches a lot of other code, or whether it's better to keep it something that is more exposed to the kind of gameplay team stuff, the people like the level designers, the designers, et cetera, who need to be able to see and touch what's operating there, and they don't want to open up a compiler to find out why, like some variable that they changed in their script is not doing what they were doing, whereas they will be more comfortable opening up Blueprint. But there will usually be dedicated programmers who don't touch Blueprint. I mean, that's kind of getting more rare if you're working on a Unreal project, because often what an engineer is going to build is going to expose itself to Blueprint in some fashion. Often, not always, of course, but often, and so they need to at least understand, like how that other side works. And I mean, if you were serious about getting involved in a game job and like learning Unreal or Unity and working on a project like that, you said you're doing modding, but you didn't really say for what is likely the easiest way to get involved. Like, it's just going to be like, oh, Unreal, we don't have to ramp you up on that for a while. Yeah, yeah. Of course, you have programmers that add to the engine. There there are projects, of course, that you can build just without any programmers. Like, Unreal was built as a shooter engine. If you're not doing anything particular fancy, you can build a shooter in there pretty easily. But like anything that, like any AA or AAA project is going to have engineers who are extending the engine to do whatever specific and sort of unique thing your game wants to do for you. And you're familiar with what ND and AA and AAA kind of mean? I mean, they're loose terms, but
And hey, Lefkoff, yes, it is a lot of mods. Closest thing Kerbal has to a total conversion.
By the way, I was kind of taking over your stream with game talk.
It's all good.
Let me know if you want to.
No, it's all good.
It's project size. An indie project will be a small team, 10 or less. Budget usually in single-digit millions or less. AA projects are high single-digit millions or low double-digit millions. AAA projects, are 25 million plus, can range up to triple-digit millions, and hundreds of people working on the team. There's a nominative quadruple A class for things like Red Dead Revolution and GTA 5 that are 1,000-person projects.
Although hopefully still triple-digit millions and not billions.
Yeah, I mean, yes, but not by that much.
Not by as
anymore.
much as, yes.
I mean, GTA 5 probably over its lifetime, not just to get it out of the door, but over its lifetime, they may have spent $1 billion on it. And what is it? Star Citizen is up to like, I don't know, $500 million almost now.
I mean,
with nothing.
Raised or spent?
Raised and spent. I've heard that they're not. I mean, other than like some mild corruption by the leadership, the money is being spent on development. They certainly have enough developers. I visited one of their UK studios just to quote unquote interview, but because I wanted to see how terrible it was under the hood.
Sweet, this thing might actually have enough performance that we can send a useful payload to GPO rather than just the testing payload.
Nice.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we have about 200 meters per second. Serve. Not more.
Nice.
Probably more.
Yeah, Ariel. I mean, the closest you'd have to what you do as a product owner, and yes, in many ways we are writing the requirements for the game. I guess the bigger differences is there is often a strong artistic / creative component to being a designer that isn't as present as as a product owner.
Yeah, it feels almost
product
like
owners.
halfway between like a product owner and a UX designer almost, because you're talking about like player experience loops.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about that stuff. You're getting the UX aspect of investigating accessibility, but I don't know how much. Like a product owner probably does at some point think about like the emotional experience somebody is getting from the game, but I don't know. They're not going to like come up with a narrative backstory for their
Yeah.
I don't know, like there are overlaps, but there's still a lot of differences. Also, designers will often be implementers as well nowadays. Like, a level designer will be implementing, like setting up a level, putting the props in place, adjusting the gameplay, things like that. There are breeds of designers, in other words.
Also, I should mention, I need to fix the offset on that. But the reason I put that decoupler in there is basically as a velocity corrector. So if this I'm, the delta V there is lower than what I expect to need. I expect some of that to come up from underestimating the delta V output. But the remainder I can get by coupling that, and that'll give me a little extra kick.
Nice.
Given that we don't have velocity correction solids.
That is appropriately Kerbal. I approve.
Yeah, still nothing on the guy who went to the moon with the couplers. Separators, actually, not the couplers. I think separators.
Wait, is it the moon or the mun?
Mun, sorry. Although
Okay.
the umlaut over the U, I think it's probably pronounced moon. I think that's why the umlaut's there.
Yeah, but I mean,
Nobody calls it that.
Yeah.
Insertion. Okay, now let's GTO.
I'm going to answer Ario's question. You want to talk about what you're doing?
Sure. Yeah, I'm just the thing from Configure Flight Planner to get a go kick for an ECI. That's correct. Where's our AN? Our AN is all right, we want the D. The DN is in 17 minutes and 14 seconds.
And to answer your question, there are teams that are using Agile only. Waterfall only used to be a thing in the industry. I think it's pretty rare nowadays. But a lot of teams will use a hybrid model. They'll use Agile for engineering and design development, especially earlier in the cycle. But toward the end, there's a lot of like art and just kind of grunt work that is relatively predictable and also staged, so Waterfall is suitable for that sort of stuff. But yeah, especially for a longer project, there's a lot of redirection that occurs. So for at least the first half of the development cycle, the quote unquote concept and pre-production phase is something like Agile or some model similar to it. And we're not particularly like we don't have Scrum masters who are religiously telling us how to operate our scrums, but we do use Jira and things like that. That's what's preferred nowadays. I don't know how Valve does it, obviously. I have worked with like
question mark. We use a bunch of different things. Depends on what we're doing.
I've worked at like 7 different games companies, so I can be a little bit of an expert, I would say.
Yeah. Pretty wide coverage.
And I guess 3 out of the 4 bigger publishers, bigger Western publishers nowadays. Well, I would say my brush with take two was tangential.
There's a particular sort of connection, but like
Yeah.
in the bowel of the beast.
I could get Red Dead for a discount, but fortunately I didn't have to work with in the sweat lines on one of their open world games.
Urge a kick. Interestingly enough, we could have lowered our inclination a little bit as part of this burn, but I don't think because of that decoupler, basically. I wish we had the thing where PvG would execute nodes, but that's far in the future.
Why PVG instead of MechJeb by itself?
I mean, because PvG makes a much better node executor than MechJeb's own node
Right.
executor.
Yeah, that's fair.
Let's see if my estimate was correct. Yeah. I thought there'd be 200 spare. There's a little less than 200. Actually, a little worse than I. But that's fine. Okay. Now, add a maneuver. Five hours and okay. This is about 1400, I think. This is 897. Whoops, too much. are. And we pulse and that makes so much more sense.
Depends on the studio area. For bigger projects, that's often the case, or bigger studios that can afford to have an internal team to do that. For smaller projects, and particularly more nowadays, there's enough off-the-shelf tooling for a lot of things. Like, there's a lot of tools that just come with, like either Unreal Engine or Unity. There's a bunch of nobody needs to write bug tracking software or anything like that. There's tools to do all your 3D manipulation. You might have importer tools that you've built custom. You might have I don't know, build tracking tools that for some reason somebody decided to build a custom. I've seen that. Especially with a live product like an MMO or something like that, you'll have a lot of tools that are monitoring the servers, etc., that are often much more custom.
Yeah, and certainly you'll have a ton of. I'm sorry, you have a ton of. Well, I guess it depends on whether you have your own engine, but even so, you still have a bunch of just general tools programming, getting content.
Yeah, there's not that many. I mean, relative to the number of game studios out there, there are relatively few that have their own engine.
Yeah, but I mean, even Kerbal very much in Unity, but we still had. I mean, Mike was pretty busy as a tools programmer.
Yeah. Wait, what sort of stuff did Mike build?
Like the U file and part tools and all that stuff, and then the PQS editor and all that.
Yep. Yeah, but I mean that he was asking if there's a dedicated team who build tools.
Yeah. No, that's not usually, except at the huge places with them. And at that point, that's sort of part of the engine.
Well, I mean, I worked at Sumo Digital for a bit, and they had a tools team that was trying to I don't know, build stuff cross project for some art tools and things like that. But wasn't a particularly successful effort. So. I think it was mostly because one of their engineer managers wanted to work as an engineer manager without actually having to talk to game teams so much. So they wanted to do this quote unquote core tech group. I mean, if you're intentionally planning to have your game modded, they may be for release. The percentage of game, I mean, as any player might know, what percentage of games are deliberately intended to be modded, it's not that high. Yeah, that's true, Ario. Although, like I said, because the industry is standardized around a few engines, Unity and Unreal are the most prominent, but there's a few others out there. Those engines are all publicly released generally, in some fashion or another. We've moved away from the times when Unreal was this closed garden that you had to pay a lot to get access to. Those tools are there in the engine, whether they release the code to make it easy for you to like modify something in Unreal to modify something in the game is more of a question. And Unreal is much less friendly toward that than Unity as an engine.
And I'm speaking with MacJeb.
Yeah. Yeah, I imagine that will get annoying in Principia if you want to do a bunch of repeatables.
Yes. Although, if you're launching to the same orbit, then these numbers are basically going to be the same.
I mean, that still means you have to go write them down and keep doing them.
Yeah. Interesting that that's so much less than the 1837 that I expected. Really sure why that's true.
I don't know.
Oh, no, that's 33,730. Okay, that's why.
Oh, you didn't go out far enough.
Yeah, that's why.
I don't know that there are too many game developers that are not using Windows as a development platform, regardless of what your target software is. I'm sure there's certainly artists out there who use Mac, but I don't know. And I think Unity will run on Linux, right?
Yeah, yeah. Unity is all platforms and also phones and also consoles.
But I mean, the Unity tools will run on.
Oh yes, there's a Unity editor for Linux.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
Oh, sorry, I thought you said OS X.
Yeah, so Unity is much more cross-platform. I think Unreal is basically only PC. Most engines are only PC, Windows.
Yeah. Source 2, baby.
And then they're not using emulators to run I mean, I think Unity will be using an emulator to run mobile software, so you can test without a phone. As far as I know, again, not really a mobile expert. When you're building for a console, for instance, off of Unreal or Unity or something like that, you have a dev kit, and you're exporting your stuff onto the dev kit to be run there. Although consoles are close enough to PCs nowadays that you just build the PC version, plug a controller in, and play it on your PC, and then do the dev kit releases when you need to test it on the dev kits.
All right, that looks correct. Finally. That was an awful lot of fiddling for simulation, but whatever. Oh, don't have comms.
Yes, it is a console for debugging. That is often much more expensive. I mean, like a PlayStation 4 dev kit will run you 10 grand or something like that. It's not the same hardware at all. I mean, it's the same hardware inside, but then a whole bunch of other hardware.
Yeah.
So that you're properly emulating the speed of the console, but also have all the debugging hooks and stuff like that. And often also because the dev kits are built as hardware to be released to developers before the final consoles are actually done. So they're using more expensive and more custom parts to, emulate what they think their console is going to be doing eventually. Because like you have to get the dev kits out a couple years before the console ships. And then they just never update it. So it's always an expensive piece of hardware.
Okay, moment of truth. Here we go. About 5 seconds before. Okay, we underburned as expected. And that was not quite enough. But it's probably close enough for the contract. So, cool. All right. So we need another 10 meters per second. I forgot to mark, so I didn't get the total expended. But it's going to vary in practice anyway. Really wish we had velocity correction. Should probably just make it.
Yeah, or get somebody to dig into the rabbit hole of proc solids.
Yeah. That is a very deep rabbit hole, though. All right. Good. Good. Oh, not nav, GEO.
I had to sleep, by the way.
All right.
Have
Thanks for coming by. Thanks. Chris. Okay, check. Right, so there's 19 X-planes. Dude is 30 plus. Yeah, so you can go up to 120 kilometers. Right, so we have very few of these left. And in fact, no X-plane difficulties. We're already past. Yeah, our current crop of astronauts are going to retire after finishing the X-15 flights. I could try to keep Christian and retired. I think it's not going to work. We're already into 98. Okay. Then need to perform a couple of these missions so we get second-gen WeatherSat missions. WeatherSat payload of 20. Hey, Alex. It would be very nice to do something like, hey, I'm going to put you in Mercury trainee, so don't retire. But I haven't written code like that yet. I remember Squirrel was asking for that a while ago, and I haven't had a chance to do it yet. We can take this to 300 kilometers circular. Yes, we can. Yeah, that all looks correct. So Squirrel, of the Mercury 7, Deke never flew. He became the chief of the astronaut office and assigned basically all the flight crews up until he assigned himself to the Apollo-Soyuz test project. Al Shepard flew Freedom 7, then was retired medically sidelined to the Meniere's disease. Deke had a heart issue that was eventually controlled through heroic levels of exercise. Al had his ear issue, which was eventually surgically corrected, and then he flew Apollo 14. Gus went on to fly Gemini missions and then died in the Apollo 1 fire. Scott Carpenter was never heard from again. Wally Schirra went on to fly Gemini 6A, and then Apollo 7, and then was a commentator on most of the Apollo missions. Sorry, I missed Glenn. Because John Glenn flew his orbital flight and then basically retired from NASA and had a political career. Wally, and then lastly, go to Cooper on Phase 7. I don't think he flew a Gemini mission. I don't actually recall. No, he did fly in Gemini 5 with Pete Conrad. And Deke replaced. So Cooper was slated for command slot on Apollo 14, but when Shepard returned to flight status, Deke replaced Cooper with Shepard. And that was originally going to, and then they swapped 13 and 14. Was bad blood between Deke and Gordo, and sidelined and then eventually left. Yes, that was the Mercury 7. Okay. Fly something for real? Yes, we're finally going to fly something for real. How are we doing on research anyway? That's almost done. Getting there. I need to recruit some more astronauts so that they can train for Mercury, because it will take a very long time to train for Mercury. In particular, 260 days. All right, we've got a couple astronauts for Mercury, and we'll start them training. Okay. Finally, we get some better avionics. All right, and let's check. It's 1950 February. I just missed I just missed the launch window. Very annoying. All right, so we're going to launch March 1st, which means I guess we launch the first. Okay. Go to a perigee above 300 kilometers with a tiny eccentricity. Do it. Okay. Here we go. Oh, are we being dumb? Yes. That was dumb. For some reason it was trying to insert at apogee, which is... Oh god. This is the wrong engine. That's very bad. That was dumb. Yeah, I thought the engine bell looked wrong, and so it did. Okay, we're at 11,255. And 69.26 ton. All right. Okay. Now edit the other one, which is going to require it back. Going to waste even more time. Nine four six nine. Okay, that made an appreciable difference. Okay, I guess we're doing our moonshot. Okay. Mark the moon. 261.9. Now, yeah, I'll do that and have a 70-minute coast or what? Some minute coast. Yeah, 3/4 coast. All right, 1 second. Let's do it. Oh, crap. That was dumb. So why do I have that engine and not the other one? $12,750. Oh. Okay, finally. That's better. Yeah, why did I not do that in the first place? I don't know. Well, we'll have this if we ever have to launch another one. Night long. Way lower margin than I'd like, but hopefully it'll be okay. Yep. Here we go. Okay. 1 hour and change. Okay, that'll do. Cool, we're gonna get a polar lunar orbit. Here we go. Oh, yuck. Hasn't noticed this engine being active. Thinks it's just the RCS, I guess. Or something. I don't know what it thinks. It's very, very wrong. See what we get. Yeah, that was super, super wrong. I mean, I think we'll still be okay. Like, I think that's I think we'll still be able to capture. Days, 19. Nope, that's not enough to capture, apparently. What's going on? Yeah, apparently that's not enough to capture. Yeah, it is not 4-minute burn. Would be very nice if you could force the duration. But you can't. See how this goes. Oh, oh. Oops. Shoot. I forgot to execute the maneuver. Jeepers creepers. Nailed it. Three days, 17 hours, 30 minutes. Looks good to me. I do not believe that rebasing will detect the correct engine. I think there's something about how until an engine burns, it doesn't count as the act. Go. Spin up. Here we go. Let's warp to the maneuver. Captured. Okay. Oh yeah, we have to transmit science before it counts as a complete contract. Oh, wait. There was an apogee requirement, apocyline requirement that I didn't see. That's bad. All right. Guess this is just going to give us some lunar science and not actually complete the contract. Bytes. Well, that was an expensive bit of stupidity. That's what I get for not reading the fine print. Although technically this was a contract configurator contract and not a fine print contract. I don't actually know if I feel safe enough to do that with a solid. Whether I need a actual propulsion. Well, we just unlocked basic avionics probes, so I think we can use some actual deep space avionics. But I'm going to deal with that tomorrow. So I'm going to call it quits. Thanks everybody for watching. Catch you next time.